Hello everyone, I'm Rupert Vandervelde and welcome to the channel. At this time of year in the UK, it's cold, the days are short and the light is unreliable. It's not really the best time of year to be shooting the urban environment, but it's a good time to hit the streets at night and take advantage of the often striking conditions that the street lamps, neon signs and ambient lighting can make. At night, we don't care what the weather is up to, and all the better if it's been raining, as there are reflective surfaces to work with. This means that we can go out on any night and at any time, pick up your camera and off you go. I started my walk about 5 PM when it was properly dark, and I took with me my trusty and beloved old Olympus EM5 with a quite superb Panasonic 20mm pancake f1.7 lens. I'm not really into gear. Give me an Ernst Haas or Brassai photo book any day. I'd much rather spend my money on books. Anyway, this with the Oli is my preferred night photography combination. It's so lightweight I hardly know I'm carrying it. And that is the way it should be when you're hunting the streets looking for pictures. Don't let the gear get in the way. This particular photo walk was partly inspired by a TV series I've been watching and really enjoying, but more about that later. What I discovered on this particular night made me want to shoot colour, boldly in some cases and with just a suggestion of it in others. Let's take a look. I started off where I wanted to take a look at a scene that I'd noticed before Christmas when I was on my way to dinner one evening. This street was characterised by ongoing building work and a portion of the pavement area was covered by boarding. The temporary lighting was creating a nice display of shapes and shadows, all bathed in a red glow. I decided on my position, framing and the position my bystander should be in, and I got the shot I wanted. After a couple of test shots, I decided the effect of the red light was a little too much, so I underexposed by 2/3 for stop to tame everything down a bit. The heavier effect this achieved was more to my liking. That was easy and quite simple, I think, but the overall composition is quite interesting. And it's also an example of how the disruption to a place as a result of building work or something can create unexpected opportunities for the street photographer. While shooting this, I noticed that there were people leaving the building opposite to have a smoke in the alleyway on the other side of the street. When I looked into the alleyway, this guy was lighting up and pacing around a bit. He was a bit difficult to shoot because of this, but as I waited, he settled into this nice pose. I liked the red wall and wanted to include it as he was leaning up against it and I was using it to hide behind, giving the impression that he was secretly being observed, which he was. I focused the lens on the lines of light on the ceiling above and as close to the man as possible because they were bright areas. I then recomposed to take the shot. Using the edge of the wall close up creates quite a nice blurring effect and helps to disguise the fact that the man isn't pin sharp. For the techies out there, the lens was wide open at f1.7, the shutter speed was 80 and the ISO reading was 3200. Actually, this kind of shot is good for practicing your timing, as you will want to try and capture an interesting pose. It's also challenging on a quick off the mark basis, as you will likely only have a limited amount of time to get the shot. I also captured this lady going through the passage afterwards, black and white this time, which helps to accentuate those lines of light. The next images were inspired by a series I have been watching on Apple TV called Severance. A very stylish sort of dystopian thriller. There are some gorgeous scenes in it. I'm not going to go into any detail about the storyline because it's the cinematography, design and style of the character's working environment that first interested me and what is most relevant here. The lighting and set, designed around an office complex of endless corridors, lifts and dreamlike spaces, and a moody colour palette of blues, greens and accents of red, is very stylish, but with a claustrophobic and nightmarish feel to it. This series reminds me of the novels of J.G. Ballard. I've talked about his work before in a video about inspiration, which you can find on my channel. There are also echoes of director David Lynch's films and Stanley Kubrick's 2001, especially with the ever-present low hum of authority. Anyway, it's well worth checking out. It certainly got me wanting to hit the streets with my camera in search of moody scenes. So in the next few shots, I decided on the use of subtle but distinctive colour as part of the look. In this picture, I was drawn to the shape of the lit area the figure is walking through and the geometric lines and shapes within it. I like high walks and shooting up towards them. They are a good way of shooting from a different perspective while still including people. The wash of red in the top half of the image adds a bit more energy and mood. Using colour at night in this way can bring an otherwise dull shot to life. This office building had an amazing reception area and was really crying out to be used photographically at night. The display in itself was really cool, but I thought the inclusion of an office worker or two moving through the area would make it look even more abstract, but also add the important human factor for scale and perspective. With this sort of scene, as there is unlikely to be much negative space and no large areas of light or shadow, I think you want to try and fill your frame as carefully as you can. Look into every corner of your composition and include shapes and details judiciously. If something is upsetting the balance, then try to hide it by shifting your position. I've got a few shots at this location that I quite like. With a scene like this, it's always worth exploring it in detail in order to find the right shot. Change your viewpoint and your framing as you move around it in order to maximise its potential. If you are including human interests, then try to capture them in an interesting pose and use the geometry to frame them. Again, changing your position will give you different viewpoints and ideas to work with. You can try stepping back and including passers-by in your shots to add a bit more depth and graphic interest. And continuing to move around the building gives rise to new opportunities and the advent of a bit more colour. The red shape is in fact a door opening, and its position is perfect as a bit of a focal point, and the way it spreads a little more colour as it reflects on other objects. This is me doing colour, folks. I like how using colour this way can add that extra punch or point of interest to some images. The first impression is of a black and white image, but then bam, there is this hit of colour. But it must be complementary to the overall composition and not upset the balance. In a recent video I made about increasing our shooting opportunities during the course of our everyday lives, I mentioned that if you were waiting for a train, for example, and you had a bit of spare time, it might be a good opportunity to grab a picture. Well, I had 15 minutes at King's Cross station before my train home that evening, so off I popped for a quick look around. Up on the high walk myself this time, and the perfect place to capture these two leaving the office at the end of the day. The high viewpoint uses the light to good effect, and we can still make out the busy rush hour traffic in the distance. Well, their day was done and so was mine, as I dashed to make my train. All in, a fun night's photography with a couple of nice shots and a good use of an otherwise dull January day. Let me know if you'd like to see more of this kind of video in the comments below. Check out my book Fine Art Street Photography, available from the link in the description to the video. I hope this video has given you some food for thought. Thanks for watching and see you next time.